The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, Beta students, to the game. My name is Alex Baumann, and I'm joined by my co-host today, Gray Oldenburg and Nathan Glidewell. Or as you'll probably note today, Doom and Gloom. Nathan's being the Doom here. Gray's the Gloom. He's been gloomy all season with the Auburn Tigers and their inability to find a way to win football games, even though they have a big lead. Nathan's just Doom because Alabama. What's going on with the program? Why are we losing games? Let's start with the Doom here and Nathan and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Lose to number 11 Tennessee, 24-17. The first time Alabama has lost twice before the end of October since Nick Saban's first season in 2007, Nathan. So we are in a whole new territory. It's rough out here for Crimson Tide fans, not as rough for Auburn fans. What happened? I mean, it's another loss. Why is this team struggling so much after the performance they had against Georgia in that first half? It's like they peaked in the first quarter and they've been terrible ever since, or average.
Well, first of all, I'm going to look at the big picture first, and then I'll break it down on how we actually lost. But the big picture is Nick Saban left. You have a whole new coaching staff. You had a bunch of people enter the transfer portal. You have a bunch of new faces in the program. That's kind of the big picture stuff. But if you want to break down the game, Alabama did not take advantage of the turnovers that Tennessee gifted them. They were gifts. The fumble on the Tennessee's opening drive. Don't even know how that happened. I mean, it just had to play. Didn't get points off that. I mean, when you don't get points off turnovers, you can't expect to win games. Turnover margin is one of the biggest things that decides games, but in order to have that, you have to score off it. And when you had three separate ones and you can't do anything with it, that's a problem. The offense was a problem. When you're going into half with I believe 7-0 lead, something like that.
It was 7-0, yeah.
Yeah. That at that point it should have been 21-0 or 28-0. It was one of the situations like you need to build the lead because you know that Tennessee is a second half team. They have been all season. You look at their previous games. I mean the previous 3 games, I believe they didn't put up any points in the first half, and then they come in the second half and they score points. Now I didn't know they lost to Arkansas, but in those other 3 games they ended up winning, and they ended up winning this one. So I never felt comfortable. Some of the play calling, I think it's just a broken record at this point where I just repeat the same thing. We don't run the ball enough. If you want to have success in the SEC, you have to have a balanced offense. And I believe Jalen Miller passed right 27 times in the first half. That is not a recipe for success, especially given that probably 12 of those targets were to Ryan Williams. There's other people on the field. You have other receivers that are certainly capable of making plays. And you don't have to just look at Ryan Williams the whole time. I know he's good. You don't need to force feed him there. Jalen just did not look comfortable the entire time. He was in the game. Breaking down the first half, he missed several throws. He failed to communicate with the offensive line to help blitz pick up, which was a big thing. That's why we couldn't move the ball a lot. And on third downs, we didn't convert. And I think there are numerous 3-and-outs. If not, you had to punt the ball after just a few plays. And it was one of those things like you want to win on the road in the SEC, especially at Tennessee. You're gonna have to make plays. You're gonna have to convert. We need to convert, and that just didn't happen. Looking into the second half, we started to run the ball a little bit, and we had success. And we had a whole drive where we responded after Tennessee had ended up taking the lead, and we go up 17-14 after just a lot of running. We ran the ball. We established a run, and then Tennessee went down, and actually, I believe we got the punt. They punted, and we got the ball back, and we proceeded not to run the ball. It's one of those things like it's very confusing from a fan standpoint. You see your team having success doing one thing, and then you immediately change it up. And the momentum of the game switches right back to Tennessee. Like that response you had gave you momentum, and you got to stop. That's where you want to build on the lead. You get another chance in the second half. Not even points on turnovers that time. it's really degrading and embarrassing to continuously watch the team make the same mistakes over and over and over again. And I know Gray's right there because he watches Auburn every week, but I don't want to watch Auburn every week. I already have the Saints to deal with. And I can't have Alabama turn into either or. So something has to change. Someone needs to be held accountable because, I mean, going back to the second half of the Georgia game, we have just it's been the same thing. There's been nothing change, and I don't care what people say in press conferences or post game conferences about what happened or what we need to change. And until I see actions that we are changing, I'm just not going to listen to it anymore because it's just not believable. It is entirely frustrating. The entire Alabama fan base is frustrated. It's understandable. We really haven't been in this situation before. I mean, of course, losing to Vanderbilt, we haven't really been in there. Were we spoiled by Nick Saban? Yes, but at the end of the day, no fan that I know of likes to lose football games. So it sucks. It really does. But at the end of the day, I still support them. Still support Kalen DeBoer. It's his first year. I know there's a lot of growing pains. I know it's a whole new offense, and these aren't even his players. I think that's a thing we say numerous times on here. We talked about it when he first got hired. It wasn't his players that are in the system. Well, let's let Kalen DeBoer get his guys because, I mean, I know these guys are so legendary from Nick Saban. They're tremendously talented, but they probably don't fit the scheme Kalen DeBoer wants to run.
Yeah, there's so many frustrating points with this game, this team in general. I mean, there's no reason Jalen Milroe should be throwing the ball 45 times in a game like this. If this was a shootout like the Georgia game, I can understand 45 pass attempts. But this was really just a bludgeoning contest. This was a dogfight. There's no reason Jalen Milroe should be dropping back 45 times, regardless if he's injured or not. There's rumors he's dealing with an injury. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not going to go into that, but there's just no reason that should happen. There's really no reason Brian Williams should have 20 targets in a game. I know he's super talented. He's 17 years old. He's one of the best freshmen, if not the best freshman in the country. But we have guys like Kendrick Law on this roster who was hyped up all offseason. This is his year. We're going to use him like Debo Samuel. Have yet to see that happen. Before this game, he had 2 receptions all year. I know he's dealing with injuries, but 2 receptions for one of the most talented receivers on the roster is inexcusable. Jeremy Bernard, he gets a lot of looks, but I don't think it's enough. There's no reason, once again, Ryan Williams should have 20 targets in a game like this. And then I go to the goal line in the red zone. Why are we throwing back shoulder fades to Ryan Williams when there is a freshman on this roster named Caleb Odom who's 6'5" and a converted tight end to wide receiver? If you're going to throw a jump ball, a back shoulder fade to somebody in the end zone, would you not want it to be to a 6'5" receiver rather than Ryan Williams? Yeah. So the execution, the play calling, it's mind-boggling. It's frustrating. Looking at the defense, we're playing 5-10 yards off receivers, and we're still getting burnt over the top. I don't understand how that happens. How do you get burnt over the top if you're playing 5 yards back, 10 yards back? Can y'all explain that to me as former football players yourselves? How that manages to happen?
Sure.
Oh my gosh. I mean it's
Why you play
broken record at this point. It's the same thing in the Vanderbilt game, same thing in the Georgia game, same thing in the South Carolina game. We have discussed the same thing. So wondering. Look, the defense showed improvement. I know there were times that they had busted coverages and we gave it explosive plays, but the defense did their job. You got 3 turnovers in the game. I am impressed. Like, you did your job. And unfortunately, the offense didn't do their job. That's if you want to win as a team, you need a full team effort, and it wasn't there in the offensive end. And with the amount of athletes the offense has, it's inexcusable. Inexcusable. I know where you're playing. I know what type of team you're playing, but they donated you the game, and you just said, "I don't want it." This team did not want it bad enough, and that has been the same tale. It was the same tale against Vanderbilt. It really was the same tale against South Carolina, but South Carolina also responded and said they didn't want it bad enough either. So no team really wanted it. And I have Kalen DeBoer at press conferences saying that he still thinks this team can win it all. And you're telling me you can't take care of business against these teams. What makes you think you're going to be able to even make the playoff, let alone go through the gauntlet that is the playoff? Because you're not going to get a bye now. You're definitely not making the SEC championship, much less winning it. So let's focus on the reality of the situation that Alabama football is currently in. Let's take care of business. We have Missouri next week. You got to take care of business at home. If you want any shot at making the playoffs, you got to win out. I think that's doable. But you still have to go to LSU. They have looked very good. They picked up a win against Arkansas. They got a huge win the week before against Ole Miss at home. So they're hungry. They want it. You gotta get your players ready and ask, do y'all want it? Because the days of NIL and doing every social media crap, I'm over it. I want to win. And I'm sure there are people on the roster that want to win, but it's got to be a full team effort.
And maybe not shooting a jump shot on a 4th and 1 when we're trying to do a QB sneak might not be a start to that. I mean, the response Nick Sheridan gave in his press conference might have been worse than the play call itself. I mean, Nick Saban would have gone on that field and he would have been irate. I mean, why are we shooting a jump shot like we're playing basketball? I know we're almost to basketball season, but that is a crucial 4th down conversion, which I do not think Alabama got. They got a very generous spot.
Okay, well, we'll talk about the officials here in a minute because there are several games we need to discuss.
We'll do that at the end because we got Auburn to go through and we got the Georgia game to go through because I think that game was the cherry on top of the night. But, Gray, let's flip over to Auburn here and their downfall. Go to Missouri, number 19 Missouri, have a 17-3 lead. Brady Cook's out of the game. He comes back in the game, and the final score is 21-17. It's like Alabama with Nathan. It's a broken record at this point, but what in the world, Auburn? The first 3 quarters, great. The 4th quarter, terrible.
Yep. And there's nothing else left for me to say, by the way. I've gotten up here and talked about 7 games now. And every single one of them, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. And I'm going to keep my voice to a very monotone minimum during this segment. And I'll raise it when we talk about the officials and that sort of thing. But for this segment, I want to talk about how devastating of a loss this seems. This is gut-punching. This is not just because of this loss, but because it's a broken record at this point. Even losses that you point to, like the Cal game and the Arkansas game, you can be like, well, I mean, you played well, but you gave the ball to them 5 times each game. You don't do that. You beat a team that you're more talented than and that you played better than. You just don't give the ball to them. Okay, great. And then that Oklahoma game, it's devastating, but it's because of a turnover. It's because one play completely changed the whole outcome of the game. And you look at that play and you diagnose it, but then you're like, okay, Auburn's got obviously a tough week against Georgia, then the bye week, then they've got a chance to flip this, to flip it on the opposite end and say, oh, we can finish games. We can find a way to win games, even if we're not playing as well. Or don't. Or just don't. It's concerning that Auburn can't find a way to win. And I'm going to give one good reason, one good thing or spotlight to think about this game, because everything else will be bad. So I've got to get on here and say something that is promising, because I'll talk about that in a minute. The good thing, Auburn's true freshmen, the class of 2024, especially on the defensive side of the football, played outstanding in this football game. Played great. Every single one of them. There's not one player in that 2024 class that played, whether they played a ton of snaps on Saturday or a few snaps on Saturday, anybody that played bad. Auburn's top 7 highest graded players on Saturday were all true freshmen. 5 on offense, or 5 on defense and 2 on offense. It's the seniors. It's the juniors. It's the transfer portal additions. It's Brian Harson's players that have the culture of All right, it's time to give up now. All right, we gotta turn the ball over. Oh, we can't score here. And that's so concerning because even if Hugh Freeze gets number one recruiting class, number one recruiting class, number one recruiting class, he's starting his leaders on this team currently in his second year have the culture of not being able to win football games. That's why this loss is devastating. That's why the Oklahoma loss is devastating. And it's demoralizing as a fan. Not only are you a more talented team than Missouri, even though Missouri's ranked higher than you, you are more talented in terms of On3 and 24/7 composite team rankings. But you played better than them for 50 minutes of the game. You destroyed them. I understand Brady Cook wasn't in the game for most of that time, and obviously that changes things for Missouri for sure. But you went on the road and were just whipping them. You were whipping them at the line of scrimmage. They weren't able to move the ball. You made plays on the offensive end. You made plays in the special teams end. But you find a way to lose because that's the culture of the team right now. That's what's demoralizing. The good is the young guys are playing outstanding. And it sounds like from inner wings between the program that the young guys still believe that they are going to be the ones to right the ship here at Auburn because they are talented enough and they don't have that culture because it wasn't them. It was Robert Lewis, the transfer portal edition, dropping the touchdown pass. It was Keontae Scott getting absolutely burnt on a 3rd and 5 late in the game. It was the transfer portal additions on the defensive line getting out of their contain and letting Brady Cook scramble on the 4th and 5. It's plays like that. And every single time I'm like, well, that's not a Hugh Freeze guy. What are we supposed to do at this point? At some point, what I want to see moving forward from this Auburn team and from this Auburn coaching staff is, all right, this season's a wash. If you go 3-9, that's horrible. And that puts you up with some of the worst Auburn teams ever to lace them up. And that's crazy considering you've outplayed a lot of those losses, like Oklahoma, like Cal, like Arkansas, and like Missouri. I think you outplayed all 4 of those losses, but you found ways to lose. But they need to go out and say, all right, this season's a wash. In the Peyton Thorne experiment, he's not doing it for you. In the Percy Lewis left tackle experiment, he's horrible. Get Keontae Scott off of the corner, put him back at safety. I don't care what he tells you, put him back at safety. Get and play the young guys. Play the guys that want to play. Play the guys that are showing you on the field, on the game field. I don't care what we're seeing on the practice field. Show the guys on the game field that are having the production like that, like those 5 true freshman defensive players that were some of the highest graded players, and then these receivers. Like, why is Robert Lewis playing over Perry Thompson or Bryce Kane? What in the crap? What in the world? You think Perry Thompson drops that touchdown pass? No. You think Cam or Malcolm or Bryce or Lambert Smith drops that touchdown pass? No. But we threw it to Robert Lewis, and his Peyton Thorne's best throw, probably of his season, and it completely changed the game. Is concerning moving forward, but I want to see how this coaching staff, because adjusting to the next game, that doesn't matter now. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how Auburn looks against Kentucky. It doesn't matter if they win or lose against Vanderbilt or Texas A&M or ULM or obviously Alabama. It doesn't matter. Play the young guys, change the culture, and get the 25 guys in and see where you're at.
I'm glad you brought up culture, Gray, because I think Alabama has one too. They have a culture problem. I mean, you go listen to the post-game show with Damian Square. He was on the sideline. He said, there's no leader on this team in so many words. He didn't say that exactly, but in so many words, that's what he said. A couple weeks ago, y'all in the Vanderbilt loss, both of y'all talked about how there's no leaders on this team. Well, if Damian Square, who played under Nick Saban at Alabama, is noticing there's no leadership on this team, that's an issue. What are our captains doing? What is Jalen Milroe doing? Every time they paint him on the sideline, he's sitting on the bench, just head down, sitting there pouting.
Exactly what Peyton Thorne's doing too.
Malachi Moore, what are you doing? I think he's doing better leading this team, but I don't think it's there yet. Deontay Lawson, he played really good this game. What are you doing to lead it though? How are you building up the guys in the secondary? Same with Malachi Moore. How are you building up those guys when they get beat deep? And Tyler Booker, what are we doing offensively? There's way too many offensive line penalties, too many lapses in protection. What are we doing to build up these young guys? The leadership at Alabama and Auburn this season has been the worst I've ever seen combined. I mean, it's terrible. It's hard to watch having no leaders on this team, considering the amount of talent, like you said, Gray, on Auburn and on Alabama. The talent they have, the fact there's no leader stepping up, it hurts.
Right.
Now let's talk about the game of the weekend. Number 1 Texas taking on number 5 Georgia. Final score 30-15. Georgia goes into halftime with a 23-0 lead. Texas could not move the football. 38 yards of total offense. Jalen Walker for Georgia was all over the place. 7 tackles, 3 sacks. I mean, dude is everywhere. And Caden Proctor blocked him and another person in that Georgia-Alabama game. So that just tells you how good Caden Proctor can be when he wants to try. Do you want to focus on the game itself, or do you want to talk about the pass interference penalty that was overturned? What do you want to focus on here first, fellas?
Well, I will say about the game, it looks like Georgia has figured it out ever since the second half of that Alabama game. Georgia's the best team in the country. I know what Oregon's done. I know what Penn State's been doing. Georgia's the best team in the country right now, and I don't think it's particularly close. Because of what they look like on both sides of the ball. What ETN's able to do, what the type of offense that he provides for them, that's something that they haven't had since Nick Chubb and Sony Michel. I mean, we could talk about the guys that they've had since then, but they haven't had a guy like ETN since Nick Chubb and Sony Michel, a guy that can be an every down back that's really helping out Carson Beck. The receivers are starting to make plays. They're starting to get open more. And then that defense is just absolutely nasty. It's just, holy. I mean, Jalen Walker was absolutely everywhere. It was scary. And the fact that, that I'm not saying Texas is a great team, because obviously they got exposed as frauds on Saturday, but that's a good offense. Sark has a good offense. They've got a talented offense too. They just couldn't do anything. And Mississippi State, Auburn, Alabama, obviously Alabama, all these teams had more success on offense against Georgia than Texas did, and that should be concerning if you're a Longhorn fan, for sure. But let's talk about the penalty. Let's talk about that.
The one penalty, or do you want to talk about officiating in general?
We can talk about officiating.
Let's start with the penalty, and then segue that into officiating this weekend or in the year. All year. So the pass interference penalty, guys, initially called on Barron, and the refs huddle together, and the Texas fans start throwing trash on the field because they don't think that it was on Barron. And granted, it really wasn't. It was on Arian Smith. They just made the wrong call, but they waited so long that the fans were able to throw trash on the field, and they changed the call to where it was correct, and it was on Arian Smith. But it's at the president, like Kirby Smart said in his press conference, where you can throw trash on the field, throw a fit as a fan, and you get the call reversed. And that's a dangerous precedent to set.
Sure.
So, I mean, what are y'all's thoughts on let's talk about this penalty right now. What are y'all's thoughts on the refs doing this type of thing in a game?
First of all, that's not in the rule book that they can change the call. Never been in the rule book, not in the rule book in any sport, in any level. You can't change that call. Number two, just like you said there, Alex, you're setting a bad example. You're setting a bad precedent of Texas fans were able to throw the water bottles and trash on the field, and they got the call changed. Oh, heaven forbid. I mean, good thing that game was after the Tennessee-Alabama game. Otherwise, Jalen Milroe would have been hit with a mustard bottle. You can't do that. You, yes, they got the call right at the end. Yes, that was not pass interference. In fact, it was interference on the offense. But you can't do that. That's not in the rule book. And at some point, when are we going to start? And I'm segueing Nathan into this into his rant. When are we going to start holding these officials accountable for this? I know there's suspensions. I know there's fines. I know there's you can get fired for not just a judgment call because referees are human. The bad calls come with the game. But why has it been so much worse this year? And then we've got referees completely ignoring the rule book.
Or being blind. Before Nathan gets started, I would like to say I bet you he wishes that they were able to overturn the no call pass interference in the NFC Championship a couple years ago with the Saints.
I don't want to do
You're
that
right.
anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. You didn't have to bring that up. That was disgusting.
I'm just trying to
That
fire
was
you up.
disgusting, Alex. You should be ashamed.
Sounds
Like
wild.
I'm gonna start off by saying, number one, I will address the ref situation in a minute, but there is a culture issue with some of these schools in the SEC. You start off with Tennessee and their fans. They were the original perpetrators of throwing trash on the field and trying to get calls changed. I don't think that was handled really strictly enough, and Texas fans definitely saw it and they took note of it. And now you have something like this where everyone thinks, okay, well, they did it before, and the penalty for it was light after the game. So let's go and do it again, and it worked out in their favor. They got the call changed.
Now
Now,
we're rewarded for it.
I mean, so as a fan, when you go to a game, there's a certain conduct you're supposed to follow. And part of that is not throwing trash in the field and making your university look like crap. Texas fans said that. Tennessee fans already expected that of them. I hate them. They're just the trash of the earth. That's why they go to the garbage truck convention every single game. But for Texas, this is your first year in the SEC, and your fans are doing this. Come on, I mean, y'all got to be better. I know several teams out there who have better culture than that. I mean, you wouldn't see Alabama fans doing that through home stadium. Georgia fans, you can get on the list. I mean, that's just unacceptable stuff.
I don't know, Georgia fans disagree with that one, but yeah, I know.
I like to think they would, but it goes down to culture of some of these schools, and it's got to be addressed. And I think that was probably taken care of with. I believe I saw that a number of students got their ticket choices for the 2024 2025 season upcoming revoked. They will not have access to it. So I think that solves part of the problem. But I mean, let's be honest, if you want to get people to stop doing it, it's got to be legal action. You got to make sure these fans are barred from coming to games anymore, which I hate to do that, but you got to follow the rules. Now moving on to the official side of it. And this game in particular, it's just, it was a horrible decision to just wait around and try to make that decision. I think the amount of time it took really just led to the build up of what actually happened. And if they would have made a split-second decision, I think that's more so you can move on from that. You can get over it and you'll get to the next play. But the way they sat there and tried to make up their minds on what to call, you can't be doing that. You got to know the rule book. And obviously changing the penalty like that, you can't do that. But then officiating as a whole, this past Saturday, I watched the Alabama Tennessee game. I'll start off with the fourth down conversion that Alabama definitely did not get at all. So we got to have eyes as officials. You got to have eyes. You got to be able to see down a line and see where the ball is and spot it correctly. So I hate that for Tennessee fans. We did not pick up that first down. It made me sick to my stomach. But then you flip it around and I look at it the rest of the game. And I think I'll mention where Ryan Williams was held on back-to-back plays where he would have had a wide open touchdown. And the back judge is sitting there looking around, looking at the birds. I don't know what he's doing. He is so completely lost and out of it that there's no penalty. that's the difference between points and no points right there. And that's a big thing for me. That's changing outcomes of games. I think we've said that every single week on the show that these officials are changing the outcomes of the games. And then the bigger situation, when Alabama had to send a player out there and basically flop because refs don't understand the rules of allowing the defense to sub when the offense first gets on the field after kickoff. I mean, that's a basic rule knowledge. And the fact that you don't understand it means you should not have the job of official. You need to go somewhere else. I mean, we need a clean house at this point. Let's start fresh. There needs to be someone up there who can understand a rule book and how to use their eyes to see what's going on. And I understand people make mistakes, but the fact that it is this consistently happening every single weekend of college football in the SEC makes me so unbelievably mad. And it affects so many outcomes of games where it just takes away from it. And it's not just been this year, but it's gone back previous years. So it's just kind of built up to this point, and now I'm at my boiling point. Fix it. Right now, Greg Sankey, before I come down to the SEC office and make y'all change it.
So I did get this example thrown at me, especially from the basketball side of things with SEC officiating and basketball. Because 20, 30 years ago, this didn't happen. Yeah, there were missed calls. These guys are human, but this kind of stuff didn't happen. And it wasn't this consistent. It wasn't this consistently trash. Are the games, and including basketball with this too, are the games and the athletes getting too fast and too quick for these old, blind men who call themselves officials to be able to see this stuff? Now, obviously, that doesn't excuse not knowing the rule book and the multiple examples that have happened to that goes to basketball as well. But in terms of these missed calls and these misjudgments of the spotting the ball and that sort of thing, is the game getting too fast? Are the refs getting too old? Where do we go from here?
We could have a whole hour-long show about missed calls, wrong calls this entire season. Yeah, I mean, the Miami calls. I mean, that those really stick out to me. Outcomes of games were decided there.
Completely.
It's terrible. And I'm trying to figure out what a tackle is nowadays. I really am.
Oh no, you can't tackle anyone. You can't look at the quarterback. Do not breathe or look near the quarterback. It is targeting. You are going to be removed from the game. Never going to be allowed to play again. It's illegal. You can't do it. We're going to go and we're going to start playing flag football just for the quarterbacks. We're going to attach flags to their hip, and you're going to have to go grab it. And if you grab it too aggressively, you're out. You're gone. So tired of this.
I mean, there was 2 ejections in the Georgia-Texas game. The second one on the Georgia player, I'm trying to figure out what he did wrong tackling the guy. I mean, the commentators were like, that's what you coach. That's a perfect tackle.
Yeah.
What are the officials looking at? Because that was reviewed. It wasn't like it was a judgment call on the field and they just went with it. They threw the targeting flag, and then the officials in the replay center looked at it and said, "Yep, that's targeting." Can I get an explanation? Can you break it down for me? Or are you just gonna this player right here, you're gone. You're gone for the second half of this game and the first half of next game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a guy's career right there. I mean, what's to say the guy that comes in for him doesn't play an amazing first half and he somehow manages to lose his starting job? That's happened before. So these officials are determining outcomes of games and maybe in the future outcomes of players' careers. So they need to be held accountable for this. And the SEC hasn't done it yet. ACC, Big Ten, haven't seen it.
No.
Got to change. All right, so that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for listening and watching, students of the game.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.